I hadn't meant to still be at the office when the sun slid behind the skyline. The floor was almost silent except for the low hum of the printer and the occasional tick from the old wall clock. It was the kind of quiet where every sound felt too loud, my pen scratching, my breath catching. She stepped out of her glass-walled office then, heels muted on the carpet, coat folded over one arm instead of on her shoulders. Ms. Carter. Everyone else called her Ma'am, or Miss C. I never could. She had a name that felt too personal on my tongue. You're still here, she said. Her voice carried the faint roughness of someone who'd been talking all day, but also a softness, like she'd stopped using her professional tone once the others had left. I straightened in my chair, feeling 23 instead of 25. You asked me to finish the inventory sheets. I figured you needed them tonight. Her eyes lingered on me longer than usual, green flecks catching the last light from the window. I did. I just didn't expect you to actually do it. She almost smiled, not the quick, polite one she gave in meetings, but something slower, heavier. For a moment neither of us moved. She adjusted the strap of her bag but didn't walk to the door. I noticed a strand of hair stuck to her lip gloss, and she brushed it away with a small, impatient gesture that felt strangely intimate. You can go, she said finally. It's late. I don't mind, I answered, though I wasn't sure if I meant the work or the staying. She glanced back toward her office. Coffee? She asked, more a suggestion than an order. I hesitated, then followed her in. Her office smelled faintly of citrus cleaner and her perfume. The blinds were half closed, stripes of streetlight cutting across the dark wood desk. She poured 2 mugs from a small French press, handed me one without looking. Her fingers brushed mine just enough to jolt me. You don't talk much, she said. You talk enough for both of us. I tried to joke, but my voice came out uneven. That earned me a real smile, brief but warm. Touché. She sat on the edge of her desk instead of behind it, one knee slightly raised, skirt shifting just enough to show a line of skin above her stockings. Not intentional, maybe, but impossible not to notice. I know what people say, she murmured after a pause. That I work too much. That I don't stop. I took a sip of coffee, bitter and too hot. They're wrong, I said quietly. You just care. Her eyes flicked to mine, and something unreadable passed between us, something not about spreadsheets or deadlines. Outside, a bus hissed at the curb and moved on. Inside, the office felt suspended, like the world had shrunk to the width of her desk. She reached for her phone, then set it down without unlocking it. I shouldn't keep you, she said, but didn't stand. I'm not in a hurry, I replied, my hand tightening around the mug. She tilted her head, studying me the way she might a complicated report. That might be a mistake, she whispered, almost to herself. Before I could ask what she meant, the sound of the elevator doors opening echoed down the empty hall, sharp and unexpected, like a bell in a church. We both turned toward the noise at once, her hand still resting on the desk between us. The elevator doors slid shut again, leaving only a muted chime echoing through the hallway. No one appeared. Just a false alarm. Ms. Carter let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding and sat back, palm flat on the desk as if steadying herself. You scared? I asked, trying to lighten the moment. Not scared. Just reminded, she said. Her tone had an edge of something I couldn't name. I leaned against the doorframe. Reminded of what? She hesitated, then gave a small laugh without humor. Of being caught. Old habit. I almost asked what she meant but stopped. Her eyes drifted to a framed photo on the shelf, her with a man about her age, arm draped casually around her shoulders, both of them smiling at some long-ago event. A gold band was still on her ring finger, though she rarely talked about her personal life. You're married? I asked softly. She shook her head. Not anymore. Years ago. He left before it was official, but it still feels like a room I never cleared out. She looked at me then, as if daring me to react. I didn't. I thought of my own half-finished past, dropping out of a program I couldn't afford, a girlfriend who told me I was too young to be serious and left without a word. We were both people who had been left standing somewhere. I didn't know, I said finally. I don't exactly advertise it. She wrapped her fingers around her mug but didn't drink. It's easier to keep the walls up at work. Her voice was steady, but her posture wasn't. One heel had slipped halfway out of her shoe, and she was pressing her toes into the carpet like she needed grounding. You're good at it, I said. At what? Walls. She gave a rueful smile. So are you. You sit in meetings like you're invisible. But you're not. Heat crept up the back of my neck. I stared at the steam curling from my coffee. Maybe I just don't know what to say. Or maybe you're careful, she said, leaning a little closer, as if confiding. Careful can be dangerous. The silence after that was long enough for the streetlights to flicker on outside. My thoughts stumbled over each other. She's my boss. She's older. People will talk. She's still wearing a ring. But there she was, inches away, watching me like she was trying to read handwriting on a fogged window. I set my mug down. My fingers brushed the edge of hers. Neither of us moved them away. Mess. Carter. I started, but she interrupted with a small shake of her head. Elaine, she said quietly. Her name hung between us, heavier than any confession. And then, without planning it, she reached out and straightened the collar of my shirt, a small, ordinary gesture that felt like something else entirely. Her hand lingered there just a second too long, and we both knew it. Her fingers left my collar, but the warmth of her touch stayed. The air between us seemed thinner now, hard to breathe in. I thought she might step back, reassert the boundary, but she didn't. She just held my gaze. The silence was broken by the sharp buzz of her phone. She glanced down. A name flashed across the screen, Daniel. Her jaw tightened. She turned the phone over without answering. Everything okay? I asked. Fine, she said too quickly. Then softer, almost to herself. He still calls sometimes. The ex-husband. The one in the photo. I should have left it there, but curiosity cut through me. Do you pick up? Not anymore. She set the phone aside, but her hand trembled as she did. I wanted to reach for it, or her, but the line between us was already too thin. Instead, I shifted back, giving her space. Maybe I should. The door handle rattled. Both our heads snapped toward it. A knock followed, brisk and casual. Elaine? You still in there? It was Mark, one of the senior partners, his voice muffled but unmistakable. Her eyes widened. She mouthed, "Stay quiet." I held my breath as she slipped off the desk and opened the door just a crack. Mark. I thought you'd gone home. Forgot a folder. Saw the light on. A pause. You're not here alone, are you? Her shoulders stiffened. Just finishing up some reports. The seconds dragged. I stared at the half-full mugs on the desk, our chairs pulled too close together, the faint impression of her hand still on my shirt. If he stepped inside, but he didn't. Don't work too hard, Mark said finally, retreating down the hall. His footsteps faded. Elaine shut the door and leaned against it, exhaling like she'd been holding the world up on her shoulders. That was close, I whispered. That was stupid, she corrected, but her voice cracked, betraying the adrenaline. I stood, half angry at myself for staying, half drawn to the way her defenses wavered. You don't have to lie for me. It wasn't for you, she shot back. Then softer. It was for us. The word hung there, us, as if it had escaped without her permission. Neither of us moved. The weight of it pressed closer, until I found myself stepping forward, until she didn't step back. My hand hovered near hers on the desk, close enough to feel the heat radiating. My heart slammed against my ribs. She whispered, "We can't." I whispered back, "Then tell me to leave." Her lips parted, but the words never came. Instead, she looked at me the way you do when you know you should turn away but can't. And in that suspended second, the office lights flickered, a motion sensor resetting, and we both jerked back like guilty kids caught in the act. She pressed her palms flat against the desk. "Go home," she said firmly. But when I walked past her, her sleeve brushed mine, and neither of us pulled away. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her hand on my collar, heard her whisper, "We can't," felt the heat of her sleeve brushing mine. By morning, the line between working for her and wanting her had dissolved into a restless blur. The next evening, I found myself back at the office long after everyone else had gone. I told myself it was to finish a report. The truth was, I wanted to see if she'd be there. She was. Her blinds were drawn, but the light under her door leaked into the dim hallway like a secret. I knocked once. No answer. I knocked again. The door opened a crack. "You shouldn't be here," she said. Her voice wasn't angry, just tired. "I had to drop off these files." I held up an empty folder I'd grabbed on the way in. She looked at it, then at me. "You're a terrible liar." "Then stop making me lie," I said, surprising even myself. Her breath caught. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Say things you can't take back." I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. Her office smelled like rain on warm pavement. She'd opened the window a little. Papers fluttered in the draft. "You called me careful," I said. "I'm not careful now." She sat down, but her posture was rigid, hands clasped so tight her knuckles went white. "Daniel came by today," she murmured. I felt something sour rise in my throat. "Your ex?" "He's not my ex on paper yet." She met my eyes. "He wants to talk things through." "Do you?" Her silence was answer enough. I moved closer, stopping just short of her desk. "If you do, tell me now. I'll walk out and never cross that line again." She stood, finally, eyes flashing with something like panic. "You're 25. I'm 46. I sign your paychecks. You don't get how this looks, then explain it to me." My voice cracked. "Because I can't stop thinking about you, and I don't know if you're pushing me away or waiting for me to say it." She flinched like I touched a bruise. "Don't." "I need to," I said, softer now. "I don't care about the age gap, or the office gossip, or your ex showing up. I just—" She closed the distance in 2 quick steps, pressing a finger to my lips. "Stop talking," she whispered, eyes bright. My heart hammered. Her finger trembled against my mouth. She didn't pull it away. Outside, thunder rolled low across the city. Inside, everything was still except for our breathing. "I'm scared," she admitted. It was barely audible, like a secret she'd never said aloud. "I know," I whispered back. Her hand dropped from my lips, hovered at my chest. We were inches apart now, the storm wind blowing the blinds inward, the smell of rain wrapping around us. And just as she leaned in, or maybe I did, a sharp knock rattled the door. The knock came again, sharper this time. Elaine's hand dropped from my chest. Her eyes darted to the door like a cornered animal. "Elaine? It's Mark." His voice was low but urgent. "We need to talk." She straightened, smoothing her blouse with trembling fingers. "Go sit behind the filing cabinet," she hissed. I hesitated. "What, please?" I ducked into the narrow space just as she opened the door. Mark stepped inside without asking. He looked different from the affable partner I'd glimpsed in meetings, jaw set, voice clipped. "Close the door," he ordered. "What is this about?" Elaine tried for composure, but her tone cracked. I heard something yesterday. He held up his phone. You might want to hear it too. He tapped the screen. My own voice filled the office. My voice from last night, muffled but clear, then stopped making me lie. The blood drained from my face. Mark's eyes flicked around the room, as if he could smell me hiding. HR has been asking questions, he said. They're not stupid, Elaine. If this blows up, it's not just your job, it's the firm's name on the line. Elaine folded her arms. You're out of line, Mark. Am I? Or are you? He stepped closer. You're still legally married, for Christ's sake. You know what they'll do with that. A beat of silence. Rain hissed through the open window. You can leave now, she said finally, her voice low but shaking. Mark smirked. I'm trying to protect you. You and your assistant. He left, slamming the door hard enough to make the blinds sway. Elaine shut it and locked it this time. Then she turned toward me. You can come out. I stepped from behind the cabinet, heart hammering. How long has he been recording us? I don't know, she whispered. She pressed her palms to her temples. He's right about one thing. This could ruin everything. I moved closer. Then tell me what to do. Do you want me to quit? Her eyes flashed fear, anger, something deeper. I don't want you to quit. I want this to stop before it destroys you. It's already destroying me, I said, voice breaking, pretending there's nothing here. She stared at me for a long moment, then took off her wedding ring, not slowly, not symbolically, but like it burned her hand. She set it on the desk with a dull clink. I should have done that years ago, she murmured. I'm done letting everyone else decide what I can and can't want. For a heartbeat we just looked at each other, the sound of rain between us. The risk had doubled, the walls had fallen, and yet we were still standing in the same small room together. Then her phone buzzed again, a new message from Mark lighting up the screen. HR has scheduled a meeting. Tomorrow. The meeting with HR was set for 9 a.m. We sat in her office the night before, papers strewn everywhere like wreckage after a storm. The blinds were closed, but the glow from the streetlights cut thin orange lines across her face. I can go in there and say it's all me, I said. My hands wouldn't stay still. They kept folding and unfolding on my knees. Tell them I misread things. You keep your job. That's not the truth, Elaine said quietly. She was sitting on the edge of the desk again, but she looked smaller now, like the desk was holding her up. And even if they believed you, you'd lose everything. I don't care about the job. You should. She pressed her fingertips to her temples. You're 25. This is supposed to be the start of something, not the end. I stood and crossed to the window, yanking the blinds up. Rain was still coming down, city lights smeared on the glass. I'm tired of living like I'm invisible, I said. If this is the end, at least it's honest. She turned toward me then, eyes wet but steady. You think honesty fixes everything? No, I said. But hiding doesn't either. She came to stand beside me. For a long moment neither of us spoke, just watching the rain slice through the glow of the streetlights. Her hand hovered near mine, not touching. I spent 20 years keeping my head down, she murmured. Building walls. Waiting until it was safe to want something. It never got safe. I looked at her. So what do you want right now? Her laugh cracked like a sob. I want to stop being afraid. I reached for her hand then, not a kiss, not a rush, just my fingers closing over hers. She didn't pull away. She let her head rest briefly against my shoulder, and for a moment the noise of the city faded. You know what happens if we walk in there tomorrow and tell them, she said. I know. They'll fire me. Maybe you. Then we start over somewhere else. She pulled back enough to look at me. You'd do that? Yes. She closed her eyes, exhaled a shaky breath, and then, finally, smiled, a small, crooked, terrified smile. "Then we tell them," she whispered. I squeezed her hand. Together. Outside, a siren wailed, fading into the distance. Inside, time seemed to slow. She leaned forward just slightly, as if the gravity between us had shifted, as if something inevitable were about to happen, a kiss, a decision, a step neither of us could undo. And that's where the night held us, two people, hands entwined, standing on the edge of everything, ready to walk into the morning and whatever it demanded. Morning came gray and wet, the kind of sky that felt like an empty inbox. We arrived at HR together, side by side, her coat brushing against mine. She didn't speak on the elevator ride up, either did I. But her fingers brushed mine once, not an accident, and that was enough to steady me. The HR manager, a younger woman with kind eyes, looked from Elaine to me, then back again. "We've received some concerns," she began, "about boundaries and workplace relationships." Elaine drew in a long breath. "They're true," she said before I could. "And it's my responsibility. I didn't plan it. I didn't want to hide. But I won't lie." I opened my mouth, but she held up her hand gently. "Let me do this." The HR woman's expression softened. "You know the policy," she said. "This puts the company at risk. But it doesn't have to ruin you." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means Elaine can resign. Or one of you can transfer. If you're both honest and handle this professionally, it doesn't become a scandal." Elaine glanced at me. Her lips trembled, but her eyes were clear. "I'll resign," she said quietly. "It's my turn to start over." I felt a sharp ache in my chest. "No, it's okay," she said. "I've been standing still for years. Maybe this is how I move again." The HR woman nodded and slid a form across the table. "You can stay on if you want," she said to me. "This isn't your fault." I looked at Elaine, at the woman who'd taught me more in a few weeks than any job had. "I came here for a paycheck," I said slowly. "But what I found matters more. I'll leave too." Elaine's eyes widened. "You don't have to." "I know," I said. "But I want to. With you." Something in her broke then, not into tears, but into a shaky laugh that turned into a smile. She reached across the table and took my hand openly, no more hiding. "You're going to regret this," she murmured. "Maybe," I said. "But not today." By the time we walked out of the building, the rain had stopped. The city smelled new, like pavement just washed. We didn't have a plan yet. We didn't even know where we'd work next. But as she slid her arm through mine, it felt like the first step of something real, not a secret, not a fantasy, but a messy, imperfect chance. She looked at me, still smiling that frightened smile. "Now what?" I squeezed her hand. "We figure it out." And for the first time since this started, the future didn't feel like a cliff. It felt like a door. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?